takes that wood off, and then it just leaves a very, very smooth edge. And that's kind of how you tell if your chisel is sharp, is that this edge should be very smooth once you remove the wood. This is John from Star Hill. We're going to talk about initializing your chisel, which requires cutting the handle to length, starting the mushroom, and then sharpening it up a bit. Chisels come generally polished, but we do want to hit them and sharpen them a bit before we start to use them. The supplies we're going to need for this operation is some kind of ball peen hammer, some type of oil. I'm using Danish oil. We could use mineral oil, teak oil, just about any type of woodworking oil. We've got a Star Hill 1.5" chisel, brand new. It has not yet been initialized. You need a saw. We're going to use the Temple Ryobi saw, which has a cross cut on one side and a rip on the other. Some type of stone. This is a stone with a heavy rubber base. We've got a fine side and a coarse side. So the coarse is about 400 and the fine is 1,000. I'll put a link below as far as where you can acquire one of these. Same thing for the Temple saw. Some type of strop. A strop is a piece of leather glued to a board. We like to keep the backside bare because that allows us to remove the burr. And then some kind of charging compound. We're going to use the green charging compound. That works well enough for what we're dealing with. And a chunk of hardwood to set the chisel on while you're peening the end. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be initializing the Star Hill chisel. This is an 1.5" Star Hill chisel. It's forged forward, it's hand forged, it's got a Cerakote coating. It's 100% tool steel. It has a wooden handle. The wooden handle on a framing chisel is a little bit longer than normal to give you a little bit more room to hold on and get your body weight behind it. On the top there's a ring, and that ring is designed to keep your handle from splitting. We have a Holstex sheath, and the unique thing about the Star Hill chisels is they have a convex shoulder grind, and so when we sharpen it and initialize it, we're just dealing with 1/64 right on the end, both on the front and the back, and that makes these chisels super easy to sharpen. So the first thing we're going to do is size our handle, and we're going to use this Temple Ryobi saw, cross cut and rip, and since we're cutting across the grain, we'll be using the cross cut. And what we want to do is cut this end of the handle off. We're going to cut it about 3/8 inch above the ring. So to do that, I take the cross cut portion of my saw, and I'm going to push it to get it started about 3/8 of an inch up. I'm going to give it a push, and then I'm going to pull. And that'll just get it started. I'm just going to let the saw do its work. I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'm just letting the saw work, trying to use the full length. These Temple saws are awesome for woodworking. They do make a cross-cut kit for timber framing, which contains this Ryobi saw, a flush cut for pegs, a large aggressive crosscut saw, and a large aggressive rip saw. And I'll put the link to those saws down below. So we just cut the end off, and we cut that about 3/8 of an inch. Once that's cut off, we're going to go ahead and soak the end of this in oil, and we're going to soak that in oil for about 5 or 10 minutes. And since we're here, we might as well go ahead and put a little bit of oil on a rag and oil up our handle. And that's just going to make the handle wear better, last a little bit longer. As you use the chisel, the oil from your fingers and your skin is going to kind of wear into it, make that easy to handle. So we've got the end cut, we've got it soaked in oil, and then we're going to take our piece of hardwood, remove the sheath, and put this blade down on the hardwood, and we're going to peen over this edge. Now we're working our way around nice and lightly, and we're just starting the mushroom. And you can see here that we've started the mushroom, and what's going to happen as we use our chisel, that mushroom's going to kind of grow, and it's going to mechanically lock in this ring, which will prevent our handle from splitting. Before I found this method, we lost maybe 4 or 5 rings every winter here in Wisconsin due to the temperature changes. With this methodology, once you mechanically lock it in, you are never going to lose that ring off of that chisel. Now that we have the handle set, we're going to go ahead and initialize the cutting edge. When you get a chisel, you can see it's highly polished and it looks like it's sharp. And a lot of folks will tell you that your chisel is sharp, but it's always a good idea to initialize it. Now, because this has the convex grind, we sharpen it much differently. We're just going to sharpen this very tip. We don't want our sharpening to come down and touch this polished shoulder area. And we don't want it to come down very far on the back. It's just the cutting tip, and that's what's going to keep that very, very sharp and make sure that it cuts very well. This is the same process that you'd utilize probably every morning when you want to. Normally I'll kind of initialize my chisel in the morning, I'll strop it again probably at lunch, maybe strop it in early afternoon, and kind of repeat that process each day. So we're going to hold our chisel. I'm using the 1000 side because my chisel's in pretty good shape. That's normally where I'll start, unless it's very dull or I have a chip or something like that. Then I may go to the 400 or even lower. I'm going to take my chisel and I'm going to hold it at a high angle, probably 50 or 60 degrees. And I'm just going to take a few strokes and I'm just going to come backwards with it. 1, 2, 3. Now, one thing about chiseling, I want to lock in my upper body, and then I want to move my hips as I'm chiseling. I don't want to move my arms because that'll change the angle. And I'm just going to take a few strokes. And if you take a look, you can see that I'm just touching this edge right here. That's the only part I'm touching. I don't want it to come up on this polished surface. I built up a little bit of a burr on the back, and a piece of wood works really well for removing that burr. You can just scrape it, maybe scrape it both ways. It's going to work that burr back and forth, and it knocks it right off. That's the method that I like. You could utilize the stone and do light honing on the back of the stone. When you do that, be wary of the Cerakoting here. Don't put that on your stone because the stone will actually wear that off. So that's really all it takes to sharpen this, and that's sharpening it through honing with the stone. And then we're going to want to polish it. So we're going to make sure that our piece of leather is charged up with the polishing compound. You just put it on like a color crayon, and you can pull your chisel this way, and all this is doing is polishing. The way that I prefer to polish mine is I generally go like this, and I just want to polish that edge up. And then the same thing, you want to polish the back side, and you just can pull that, or again, my preference would be polish in the back like this. Now, it only takes just a couple of minutes, and what's really, really interesting about this is to get a nice sharp cutting edge, you just have to touch the tip. There's some feeling out there that some folks believe that you have to flatten this whole back. I picked this up, I think, from Paul Sellers on YouTube. And this is the cutting edge, and it really just needs to be sharpened right at the edge. So a pencil line on the front, a pencil line on the back, and that chisel is ready to go, and it is ready to use. Once the chisel's sharpened up, it just cuts really, really